got this start recording, start streaming. Okay, I've got the window capture. It says excellent connection. So why isn't it doing it? All right, I don't understand. What do you use for your setup actually? I mean, obviously yours is a much more professional
No,
endeavor.
it's actually way less professional than what you're currently running right now. I use OBS to manage just what screen share I'm doing, and then I just pump directly into Restream or StreamYard. Right now, I'm wrapping up a subscription on Restream, and I end up just doing most of it directly through their web interface right now because for a weekly talky, really long news show, I really don't get much benefit trying to like polish and present it more professional. So I try to keep it as lean as I possibly can. And I mean, it definitely could look better. It could be a bit better segmented and produced, but I'm going to turn around and cut another one next week. And I go for 2.5 hours, sometimes 3 hours of talking.
Yeah, I do follow the podcast, so
I apologize.
No. It's we'll talk about it. Okay, so it's finally streaming. It says it's supposed to be recording. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Where's it gone? Where have you gone? Okay, there we go. And yeah, Craig has started. So let's give myself 10 seconds so that I pose myself. Welcome to the Atypical Doctor podcast, season 2, episode 5. And you're going to have to forgive me if I get a little starstruck and a little bit fangirly, because I've actually got, this is now the second episode in a row where I've actually got someone who's legit famous. You know, last time I had Popey, the famous Linux podcaster, and we had a very interesting discussion actually, which went in very interesting ways actually as well. And this time I have Juan Carlos Bagnell, also known as Some Gadget Guy, someone who has been helping me manage my commute for the last, I was counting this out, 13 years, I think I have been listening to you in some way, shape, or form. Don't worry, you don't need to get a restraining order. I'm in another country, so I'm not going to be stalking you.
Yeah, I think you. That sounds about right. Yeah, it's. I'm one of the olds on the internet these days.
Time has gone, hasn't it? And it's just shocking how long the pace of innovation that we've seen. You know, whether that's Android, Linux, technology in general, politics in general, unfortunately. So, I remember you as, if I remember correctly, I was listening to you when you were on Pocket Now.
I was hosting the Pocket Now podcast for around that years.
Time. And the reason I remember it being 13 years, 2012, is... it was the year I got a Samsung Galaxy S3. And and that was not my first smartphone. I'd had a HTC Hero before that. I'd had a Nexus S. I'd had a HTC Sensation, which I thought was the worst phone I had ever had, until I realized maybe like a couple of years later that actually I had a faulty unit. And if I had just and if I had just gone back to the shop and said, there's a problem with this software in this, they might have fixed it.
Hindsight gets us all.
Yes, 2020 definitely. But when I got that Galaxy S3, it was the first time that I think I began to use a smartphone as my all-in-one device. It was the main way. Obviously, it was the main way that you messaged people and even rang people. Weird things. But, it was what I used for listening to music. It was what I used for listening to the radio, listening to podcasts. First time that I actually got some decent headphones, because it was the first I felt that it was a device that could do all of those things without me. Yeah, it became my camera. I haven't actually bought a digital camera since. Which, okay, I mean, if you look at the state of my folders, you can probably understand. But so that's why I remember it. And so I remember it being about 2012, that time. So was Pocket now your first foray into the tech space, or?
No, I've been, so I mean, the abbreviated story of all of this is I've been a mega tech nerd since, I want to say, 1986.
Ooh, okay.
My first computer ran DOS, and if I wanted to play games, I had to know how to navigate DOS and 5.25-inch floppies. And I played Tetris when it was brand new.
Oh, yes. I remember
when that was the new hotness.
Yeah.
In gaming. So getting into mobile technology was something that happened really aggressively after college.
Okay.
And I was working for a technology reseller that had a contract with the Department of Energy. Okay. And so the DOE facilities were looking at these like PDAs. And a whole line of PDAs had biometric security. So we were teaching scientists out at Los Alamos National Labs how to use these Windows mobile devices that had fingerprint sensors on them to try and safeguard data at the labs. And I ended up just kind of falling in love with mobile stuff. But like in 6th grade, I had a pocket organizer as a Texas Instruments like Rolodex and memo machine, and it had a QWERTY keyboard, and I would write my notes in class on that. I had the TI-92 graphic calculator. I used to program games on the TI-92, and it was a graphic calculator with a QWERTY keyboard. I look back on it, and from calculators to pocket organizers and digital assistants and things like that, I've basically my entire life have looked at something portable and said, well, what can I do to push this to its absolute limit? And ended up turning that into a career. So if you were around back in the day, Palm Treos and Windows Mobile and XDA devices and stuff like that, for a while I held the record on overclocking the iPac HX 2750. and like, if you can find those Init 13 benchmarks, I was one of the ones who was at the top of the leaderboards for overclocking the Intel X Scale ARM CPU. So it's stuff like that, just like on and on and on and on and on. It's always been a part of like just how I navigate my daily life.
So technology has been both a hobby and a vocation for you.
Yes. Yeah. And that's kind of where your lifestyle merges with your job. Yeah. Like I try to really live it like the way I talk about it, like the way I show it. And it's also, I appreciate like the accolades at the beginning of this, but as I've gotten older and older and older, I've really tried to refine. I'm not trying to talk to everybody. I know my perspective is now becoming a bit more singular and a bit more specific. And I'm really hoping I'll build that audience, all the people that are responsible for like resetting Auntie's router during the holidays, right? I'm not trying to help your auntie. I'm trying to help you. Those are the people I really want to talk to. That's the nerdy misfit lunch table that I want to hang out at. So that's really what I've tried to refine. And people will find my channel and be like, what is this guy talking about? Or why is this guy so angry about these really popular brands? I thought we wanted things to just work. And I'm over here like, yeah, but if I had this phone with this feature and I could like, run terminal and install graphical apps on my phone, then I wouldn't need to worry about a desktop mode. And there's obviously a disconnect there when people kind of stumble onto some of my stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, my latest nerdgasm was I managed to SSH into my server from my phone And
It's good,
I
right?
did and run a couple of updates, sudo apt upgrade, sudo apt install, and I was just like, this is so cool. But
Now, tell me. Not only is that cool, but you do that, and you think, why wasn't I able to do this 5 years ago? Right? I mean, that's what's been driving me crazy over this last generation of devices. Is we basically got placebo horsepower and torque in mobile devices, and I'm doing things and going like, it always kind of could have been this.
so
It's taken so long to get here.
so okay, I was going to get to this later, but I suppose we can get to it now. One of the things that I've always found interesting about your channel, and the things that you do, is the slightly, it could be argued, contrary viewpoints.
No. I am outright antagonistic to
Well,
what I feel is collective groupthink.
and
If someone tells me that there's a reason for this and the reason is low level and we all just know that that's why it is, I'm probably going to outright mock that position.
So, and it's refreshing. It's refreshing. And in the same,
for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I mean,
But
I must. Well, there's another point I was going to make about that, which is that if technology is your vocation as well as your hobby, there's bills that need to get paid because of YouTube channels and stuff like that, then it's even more difficult to be contrarian, isn't it? I've heard you talk about it many times about, there's no point me reviewing the latest Pixel. There's no point me reviewing the Galaxy or the next iPhone, because I'm not interested in that sort of stuff. But if I wanted to make money, then I would be leaning heavily into that. So the algorithms, and this is why you will find and you will get, videos coming at a particular cadence. There's the first look when the first initial embargo, releases. Then there's the full review when the second embargo releases. And then there's the 6 months later when, it's starting to die down, but you needed to try and push it back up again. And, the manufacturers have got some sales going, and, people are now reconsidering or whatever.
And click on all of my affiliate links.
Yeah.
There's a sale, click on my affiliate link.
And
that
so
would make me a lot more money.
Yeah. And so do you sometimes think that you, because at the end of the day, we've all got mortgages to pay and bills to do.
Sure.
Do you sometimes think to yourself, maybe I need to be a little bit more conformist?
No.
That's good.
No, I'm happy. I'm happy to leave that money on the table, because it puts me in a position where I never have to backtrack. I think it was in 2018, I did a video saying, this is my bias. This is my preference. And I spelled out like the things that I like in mobile devices and the things that I would want on a phone. And from 2018 to today, I haven't had to walk any of that back. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, because my favorite manufacturer got rid of these features, now I'm not so bothered by them anymore. No, I'm still just as bothered about losing user replaceable batteries. That keeps your phone out of a landfill. Mm-hmm. I'm still viciously disappointed that we don't have expandable storage that helps keep your phone out of a landfill. You have your phone for 7 years and you're going to tell me you're not going to use all of the storage on that phone? Well, yeah, that's a pain point, so that eventually you'll have to flip that phone and your phone's going to go into a landfill. I'm still utterly disappointed by my tech brethren that we rolled over on headphone jacks. Mm-hmm. If we're not going to have a headphone jack on a phone, we should have a second port on our phone, because what happens to our charge ports? Oh, well, I know. I'll just switch over to wireless charging, which takes forever to charge a phone and then cooks my battery. And guess what? Now I've got to replace my phone sooner than I would have, because I've got a busted charge port and a cooked battery. Every one of these points just kind of keeps landing back on consumers, and especially back on the people who are most vulnerable to this kind of consumerism strategy. Mm-hmm. And that to me is something I've never had to just go, oh, you know what? Yeah, now I'm not bothered by something that's going to wreck your phone in 3 years because a massive $1 trillion company said this is the way that we should do business. Now it's okay that you have a small battery that gets cooked by wireless charge. Oh yeah. And in the description are my affiliate links. So you can pay me for me to change my mind on this business practice.
Since you have your own YouTube channel, the Discord community and all this, I can imagine it's much easier to be clear about what your biases are and say, these are my viewpoints. I'm not saying this is the only way, but this is my way, or this is what I think.
Yeah.
Did you find that a problem when you were working with some of the other publications before?
We used to get into some pretty heavy debates. When I was at Pocket Now, it was a really dicey time for the site. Michael Fisher had just stepped down, and I was sort of a body to fill that space. And at the time, my personal YouTube channel had some pretty decent traffic on the way that I would craft camera reviews. So they brought me in to kind of maintain some stability just in the pure day-to-day workflow. But there was an idea that I would specialize. And for me, a website is running well. A tech website, commentary, anything like this is running well when your most popular content can subsidize the production of some less popular content, but it keeps everything consistent. So if HTC isn't clicking with the algorithm and Huawei is blowing up huge numbers, that doesn't mean we stop covering HTC. It means our Huawei content should be subsidizing the production of our HTC content, and then no one can pin us. No one can come to us and say, oh, well, you're just a shill. You're just a family. You reviewed one phone really well, and then you just totally slacked off on another phone. And so after about 2 years of really trying to work through what was going on with YouTube, we had a very dicey relationship with Samsung. Samsung can put a hurt on a lot of channels if they just don't want you to have access. Well, then you're just in it with all the regular people who bought their phones. Just as the popularity of that topic is declining, you'll make less money on your content. But if you want to play ball with Samsung, you can play ball with Samsung, and then we'll like you again. Same thing, like John Redinger has a great video out about being blacklisted by Apple.
Yeah, I've seen that video.
They can hurt you. If you don't want to play ball, if you don't want to carry the message. And even for John Redinger, he was already not getting invited to Apple events. He was spending his own money on Apple products, and Apple PR still went after him and made an example out of how they were going to handle his channel. And he's like one of the most practical, biggest channel Apple fanboys out there, but he wasn't towing the line enough. So after about 2 years of kind of looking at stats and really trying to figure out how we were going to monetize content, it just kind of made sense to me to step away. Like, I really didn't think I was a good fit for Pocket Now's audience. I don't think I was introduced very well to the channel because Fisher was still there. So I came on as someone extra, and then Fisher disappeared. And that, I think, was jarring for a lot of the Pocket Now audience. And I wasn't quite as antagonistic then as I am today, but I still liked to pick at things. Like, I don't like to give someone room for a bad argument. So I would show audio, and I would get into like big fights. One of my favorites was David Ruddock while he was over at Android Police. David is I mean, he's a pal. I really enjoy talking to David. I and we're not close friends, but I think we would consider ourselves work acquaintances. But like when we were talking about headphone jacks and audio quality on LG, he chopped it up to just like snake oil. And I went there and I like broke down every number, recorded every sample, showed you every frequency response graph. Like that to me is I'm doing my job and I'm showing the work. And I'm very disappointed in audiences that give massive channels with massive audiences a pass because they have all the resources to really do the work. And they're sitting here going, oh, but I just don't like this wallpaper. You're like, well, yeah, that's a less popular phone. That's not going to make you as much money. So if you tell a Samsung owner that they were right to not buy a Motorola or a OnePlus or a Vivo or an Oppo or a Xiaomi, well, yeah, you're going to cement with your larger section of the audience and your video is going to make more money. But you didn't review that other phone. You reviewed what it wasn't. And it wasn't a Samsung. So now you look like you can give the tough criticisms until a Samsung arrives, and then you're like, oh, this phone is so great. And through pure meritocracy, I just love what it does.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of thoughts that come to mind. First is...
Oh, there's a lot.
Oh, there's
every day, man.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of thoughts. But I'm talking about more from a fun kind of big picture perspective. Firstly, I think... So I've mentioned that I've been on other podcasts and I've done other things as well. And we have generally resisted monetizing. If we do monetize, it's just to pay for the servers. Nobody's making any money out of this,
Yeah.
right? And part of the reason for that is that it keeps, at least the way we've understood it, is that it keeps us less biased, because everybody's got bias. You can't say you've not got any bias, because then you're not a human being.
No.
Everybody's got some bias, but it keeps but it keeps you more honest in that sense. Secondly, because your day-to-day running doesn't rely on this. You have another job which pays for this. That again, you can be again be a bit more honest and be a bit more true to what you believe, which I can understand is a big problem if it's not just your hobby, it's your vocation as well. And as you've said, is it not though that the demographic of the consumer has fundamentally changed from when, at least definitely me and from yourself as well, first got interested in these things? I was thinking about this. So
Okay.
I'm kind of like you in the sense that I got into computers in the 80s. 1987, I remember my dad bought me an Amstrad CPC 464 with the tape deck. Had half an hour to load anything. My
next door neighbor had that. Tape decks blew my mind.
Yeah,
that was crazy. And
then I had an Amiga 600, which was the worst Amiga to buy, by the way. I mean, I love Amigas, I really do, but it was if anybody knows anything about Amigas, they'd know what I mean when I say that. And then an Amiga 1200, and then it was 1995. Britpop, Oasis, Blur, Metallica, all of these things came into my mind as a teenager rather than technology. And so I had this kind of hiatus before I got back into things around 2008, 2009, 2010 with the first Androids and Linux, etc. And for me, in both of those early periods, because you had like the early period of computing, you could kind of say, the 80s, and you had the early time of mobile, Android, first iPhone coming out. I remember the day the first iPhone came out. I remember I was in the operating theater, but I remember when it came out. And the people who are excited, the people who were like, oh my God, this is brilliant. And, were the nerds, were the technology geeks, were people like me and you to an extent. And now, because a lot of smartphones have got to the stage of being appliances, a lot of computers have become appliances, that the demographic of people who's buying them are, and the analogy that came to my mind, and I don't know how accurate it is, and you can tell me if you think I'm talking crap, cars. Most people that buy a car, the vast majority of people who buy a car are not mechanics. They're not car nerds. My middle son, is a complete car nerd. He can tell you everything about every brand and every engine and this version and this facelift and this is this. I mean, he, as I said, he's a complete car nerd. He can't even drive yet, but that's what he is.
Mm-hmm.
Most people who drive cars aren't that demographic. And so, for example, I mean, okay, I do know a little bit about cars, but I'll give my wife as an example of someone who just wants a car to go from A to B, have enough space for her to put the stuff that she needs to do, the shopping that she needs to do. Does she really care about what type of engine is inside it? If she remembers that it's a petrol or a diesel, it's a win for me. Do you know what I mean? So she doesn't put the wrong fuel in. Have we now got to that same stage in a sense with mobile technology, computing, in that the vast majority of people who have got your $1,000 iPhone, aren't the tech nerds who are looking to see what else they can do. Therefore, the people who are selling them are going to sell them on things that they think that they would like, rather than
lots.
Yeah. So I know there's a lot to say. There was a lot to, in that.
So just to kind of backtrack into that and tell me if I'm kind of off the track of what you're asking here. One, I do think when we look at the first major shift in consumer-facing mobile technology, when we're picking up the iPhone, we tend to glaze over the Symbians, the Blackberries, the Windows mobile devices that really carved out the business-facing, the corporate-facing solutions that people depended on. My wife is still, if you told my wife that they were going to bring back the BlackBerry Curve, she would drop Android in a heartbeat. She wanted the best messaging solution on the planet. That's really, today, that's really what she cares about the most. And even for a little while, she was rocking an Android BlackBerry. You know, just she wanted that kind of experience
Physical
back.
keyboard.
And now we don't sell that. Well, and massive battery life. Massive battery life, because it was about efficiency. It wasn't about trying to impress you with graphics and
the
prettiness.
games
And
and
she
all
doesn't
that.
play games on her phone and all that stuff, right? So when we get to that first major shift, I really don't think the techies were that excited. We were in those conversations where I would pick up a Windows mobile device and say, like, I can install software on this. I already have a 3G data connection. My screen is twice the resolution of the iPhone. I can flip it. It's got like this cool like click wheel on it, so I can use it like a music player. I've got word processing. I've got games. I played Age of Empires on a 3.5-inch resistive touch display with a stylus. And that's something that the iPhone is 2G and has web app.
Yeah.
You know, I really think it was the popularity of the iPod put in your phone in a way that was interesting to a broader mass of consumers that moved us into this mobile era. It was consumer facing. It wasn't corporate or business facing.
Okay.
So when we extrapolate on that, I love it when people bring up metaphors for cars, because I love using cars and vehicles as a metaphor.
Yes, I've seen
for the different types of devices I review. So obviously your wife, you know, drives from point A to point B, goes to work, picks up the groceries in a $300,000 Maserati SUV, right? It's the best car, so that must be what she drives, right? She needs a $300,000 vehicle to go from point A to point B in stop and go traffic and to pick up groceries. Why would you buy a lesser vehicle? So one of the things that I think we need to give consumers more credit, and this is coming from an American and now an American living in California. So my perspective on vehicles is probably a little different than some audiences in Europe. This is an extremely car-centric society. You know, we have massive freeways that we keep expanding, even though every bit of data and heuristics on that tells us don't keep making the freeways bigger. It doesn't help you. But we keep doing it. So you're right. There's a general ignorance to like engines in this country. But if I hold up a picture of $100,000 turbo diesel truck and I hold up a picture of $100,000 sports car, everyone's going to be able to say, well, that one's more powerful and gets work done, and that one's crazy fast and impractical for me to do my shopping in. And then I can hold up a picture of a Prius and not tell them anything, but they'll know instinctively, well, that's the one that gets the best gas mileage, and it's probably good for my kids to drive them to school and stuff.
Yeah.
But if I hold up 3 phones right now, are you confident that you'd be able to tell me which one is the best for productivity software and can get work done and can render video the fastest, and which one's better for gaming? I've got 12 phones on my desk. How well do you think you would do if I started holding up phones?
I don't think I'll be too bad, but that's only because I'm a phone nerd as well. But
see, that's what I mean.
But I mean, for example, if it was
glazed over,
if it was my wife or something or my kids or whatever, I'm sure. I get your point.
We've convinced people that they're tech savvy because they look at a screen all day, but we actually have not taught up and coming tech users and tech consumers what these differences are.
Yeah,
and in fact, it's getting worse. As I look at my daughter is in grade school and she just got her first laptop for school last year. And I was super excited. It's a little Intel Celeron N100.
It's the Ubuntu one, isn't it? It's the Ubuntu one, isn't it?
So here's what killed me this year. Last year, they gave the kids all of these wide open Ubuntu laptops. But all the teachers knew what to do was open Chrome and use the bookmarks in Chrome. So my daughter and a couple friends are going through all of these programs that were pre-installed. They had GIMP, they had Shotcut, they had Audacity. She realized, if I write in Google Docs, my teacher can see everything because that's going through Chrome, and that's the portal that the teachers can manage the devices. But I also have LibreOffice on this thing. It says Office, and it has an app. It has an app called Writer. So she started saving like stories, and like one of her friends was writing, basically a zine, like a magazine about the school. Like he was like writing about gossip, and she taught him like, oh, well, if you don't want the teacher to see it, write it in this app, and they can't get into it unless they have your laptop. So this year, the teachers got wise. All the kids are back on Chromebooks now.
Yeah.
And it kills me because but after a little bit, I'm going to have to show her you can enable Linux on a Chromebook and you can get back. She genuinely prefers writing in LibreOffice over writing in Google Docs. Literally just like how it's laid out, how it's formatted, what it looks like. She's already developed that preference. But so few of the kids in this class are understanding there's this app drawer, and then in there are other programs, and they can add more programs. It's like we've taught them, to your point, people act like the phone is some kind of appliance. People act like a tablet it does tablet things, kind of intermediary between a phone and a laptop. But it doesn't take much. It really doesn't. You have to go person by person, but it doesn't take a lot of effort to show them, no, this one thing that you bought could also achieve or accomplish all of these other tasks.
Yeah.
And it's got to be why you get into podcasting about Linux, right? Linux is having the best stretch ever of building market share, supporting gamers.
Yeah.
The Steam Deck was huge. We're actually seeing some hope and some potential for moving Linux mainstream.
Yeah.
In a way that we haven't for, 10 years. 10 years I've been hearing this is the year of Linux.
Oh, 20 years, man. It's been going on. The year of the Linux desktop. It's become a meme, the year of the Linux desktop. Yeah. And now, in the last couple of episodes, we were talking about, it was 5% at the beginning of the year, and we thought that was amazing. It's hitting 6% now. And you're like, what? And then actually, if you drill into the numbers, it gets even more interesting. If you look at India, it's up to 15%.
Yeah, see, buddy. And initiatives throughout Europe, and look at the decline of Windows 10 users who are not going to be happy that a perfectly functional machine is arbitrarily being kicked off of support. And you've got a bunch of dorks like me doing project builds. Like I took a little AMD mini PC and slapped SteamOS on it, and let me tell you, that thing screams. It is such a screamer. If you want to make a little 1080p living room gaming machine, it's a tiny little box, and you can bolt it to the back of your TV.
Yeah.
So when we accomplish, as techies, when we accomplish what we set out to do, I have no expectations that like my family members are going to be like, oh, cool, and I can sudo and I can apt-get and I can do all this stuff, or oh, look, my phone can cut 4K video with rich transitions and watermarks and soundtracks. But when I show them that, like a little seed gets planted that either try to do more with your phone, or there's no point spending so much on your phone. And I'm sorry that your wife is driving such an expensive SUV to like pick up the groceries and stuff, because it seems like overkill. Like you can tell her just the maintenance costs alone could be, a Prius or an MG or something.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good way of putting it. So
I'm sorry to tell your audience, like, give up what your garage looks like.
No. But no, you've explained that well, and actually it reminds me of. So, people who listen to me other podcasts know that I've not been well recently. I had to have emergency surgery, and I've kind of been sat at home. Hopefully, going back to work this week. I hope. So what do you do when you're sat at home doing not a lot? You tinker with stuff and you watch lots of YouTube. I'll be honest. I found myself introducing my sons, who, by the way, who is 18, before anybody says anything, Peaky Blinders, because he'd never watched Peaky Blinders before.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And it's set in my city. It's set in Birmingham. And so it's really funny hearing the local accent. It's really funny hearing them talking about Saltley and Alum Rock and Small Heath, because it's like, okay, I walked through Small Heath yesterday. Do you know what I mean? And we had dessert down there. So it's really and there's this interesting conversation that Tommy Shelby has with Alfie Solomons. There's many interesting conversations. One of them is when he talks about how the Americans have come to the UK, and they're not going anywhere. They're loving what they're finding. The fact that the police aren't armed, there's no guns around. Prohibition obviously was happening in America at this time. It's not happening here. Everybody's easy to knock over. They're gonna come and they're gonna take over, right? You might think, why am I using a random Peaky Blinders example? I'm talking about technology. I bet if every car manufacturer could convince every household that I need to buy the 300,000 Maserati SUV rather than the 50,000 Toyota Prius. I don't know how much they cost, but as an example, then I think they'll all jump on it. They'll be like, yeah, this is a gravy train, mate. This is a money train. Let the suckers eat cake, Sure. And I think you've hit on something there, that I think that's what's happening. They realize that a lot of the big companies realize that people are massively overbuying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But they're making money out of it, so it doesn't make any sense for them to point that out. And in fact, it probably makes more sense to actually dumb down those top devices so that even more money can be made. You've only got 25 watt charging. Don't worry, you can get a wireless charger that you can get. And you haven't got a headphone jack, but do you know we have these earbuds which will sell for X amount if you buy this?
Right. So your speculation there isn't speculation. That was part of the disclosure during the Apple Epic lawsuit. Okay. We saw a communique between Apple executives saying, not only do we need to radically slow development on the iPhone because people will pay for whatever we give them. I think ostensibly when they're talking to dudes like Schiller, they might have been joking. It's hard to glean in emails, text conversations, but they were actively discussing ways that they could maybe roll back some of the expensive technologies that were in the iPhone that were too good, right? So when we all kind of feel like, this is kind of becoming a stagnant market, or I think it's maybe this, like, no, just keep up with the court cases. That is open disclosure now. Mm-hmm. We should be discussing Apple's internal discussions are how to get you to pay more for iterative technologies and less innovation and less progress. And then when we see some companies out there that are actually trying to move the needle on some of these things we say we care about, like battery longevity, charging speeds, camera technology, display technologies, well, they don't spend $1 billion a year on marketing. So they must not be gooder enough. And I guess I'll stick with the brand I'm familiar with. And so I feel like Google, Apple, and Samsung, especially here in the United States, because we have so little external competition coming in, have all kind of circled each other to say, this is good enough. And now we're kind of frozen.
Yeah, and the serfs will buy it. Whatever we throw, they'll buy. Yeah, I think you're right on that. There's also sorry.
When it comes to
go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, because your example of bringing up vehicles, there is a peripheral osmosis education about vehicles, and the second you get in one, this car is really slow. This truck burns a lot of fuel, right? Like there's something that's tangible and practical to the operation, ownership, and maintenance of that vehicle. You can't help but be a bit more educated about it just through the use of it. Yeah. And often just through riding in one, you can start to glean some of the information that's necessary to operate a motor vehicle. we are not educating consumers on the technology that they use. And so, and wherever this conversation goes, I actually think it's markets like India that might actually show us the potential
I was going to get to that.
It's again, after finally getting to visit India last year, it verified for me a lot of my guesses and a lot of my hypotheses on what a mobile first consumer base could look like, and how you can solve problems with mobile in ways that here in the United States we've kind of given up, and we've heavily siloed. A phone is only good to do phone things, and you're like, no, it's a computer. You have a computer in your pocket, and the only thing holding you back from doing more on it are a couple of really bad business strategies from companies like Google, Apple, and Samsung.
So I was actually going to get to this as well, because I think we're both on the same wavelength when it comes to this. That I think if you want to see innovation, you have to go to emerging markets, and the biggest emerging markets are, wherever your political leanings are, they're India and China. Just because that's a quarter of humanity, at least, or a third of humanity. 1.4 billion is India's population. China's is 1.3. It's a lot of people. And
I want to say, like, easily the next 500 million emerging internet users are gonna come from India alone.
I mean, my roots are in India. My mum and dad were from Bangalore. And as is my wife, so I'm the only person who has to spend 7-8 grand to go visit his mother-in-law. My mother-in-law actually loves me. Actually, I don't know why I complain.
That's great.
I don't know why I complain, but I still do.
And the food. The food.
Although I will say one thing, it's almost become a meme now. From that, every time I go to India, I come back, and on the first day back, I'll take a photo of some toast or some cereal and be like, "Oh, thank God, normal food which doesn't have spices. Thank God, I'm home." It's the thing about being a second gen. You're kind of too English to be an Indian and too Indian to be a Welshman. That kind of thing.
So as a Hispanic individual, I can kind of vibe with that. But I come from New Mexico, where we eat everything with a variety of chili pepper that's unique to the Southwest. And you're like, you want eggs? Well, you obviously want eggs with red chili sauce. You want a cheeseburger? You obviously want a cheeseburger with green chili kind of smashed in there. So to me, it was one of the best cultural understanding, because Indian cuisine, there's so many corollaries with Native American cuisine. And Native American cuisine in the deep Southwest draws on a lot of this New Mexican, Colorado, Arizona, like chili pepper heat. So you wake up in the morning, and I go down, and I can see all of these techies lining up for like croissants and bagels and very anglicized food. And then I dovetail over to the other, just one aisle in our hotel, which is like all of the hottest curries to wake up to that morning. Is like, they're speaking my language, man. I need a jump start for this day. Let's get this going. So I again, a lot of appreciation for that, because when I talk about a lot of the situations that we face here in the United States, and you have to incorporate political discussion in your topics, in your tech topics, whatever is going to help the next 500 million people get online in India is going to be a godsend to all of the underrepresented people that we have here in the United States that we can't even count. We don't know. We don't know how many people genuinely can't participate in a global economy, in a digital first economy. We're guessing, and we're letting internet service providers give us maps and numbers on this, but we genuinely don't know. In fact, globally, our census might be off by hundreds of millions of people. We might just not have counted them because we don't know how to reach them and how to count them. And we're saying, oh, we're about to hit 8 billion on the planet. You're like, we probably broke that already, and we just don't know. So when I talk about this, it's not just like, oh, well, India, and I think that's going to be great, but here in the United States, we'll keep doing the same thing. If we can pull just fractions of what's been accomplished for emerging populations online in India and China, that would be huge for rural areas here in the United States. I just have to convince people who think it's nifty that they've got 2 phones, a tablet, and a laptop to all like watch TikTok on, that they don't need to do that. And that maybe it would be better if we had devices that could cover more usage scenarios and you wouldn't have to rebuy the same technology 4 times every time you got new kit.
So the Indian example, which I was going to get to as well, I'm kind of independently both got to that, which is kind of spooky. Obviously, you know, they say great minds think alike. They also they also say fools seldom differ. So which
yeah.
No, I know exactly what you mean about India, and I've seen it, and I even wrote about it in the past as well. You know, because of the cadence that I normally go to India is every 2 or 3 years. And you know, every time I go, I get to see what's happened, what's changed, where things have gone, and stuff like that. The business model for buying a phone in India is still predominantly you go into a shop, you put money down, you take phone, you walk home, right? Mm-hmm. This means it's an incredibly price sensitive market. And you will find you go into, I'm sure you went to some of the malls, like the Reliance ones and stuff like this, and you'd see the amount of, it was like for the equivalent of a $50, whatever that is in rupees, section, there would be a different phone. There'll be an Oppo 2A, Oppo 2.9. There will be a Vivo X, whatever. There will be a Micromax, which is one of the local brands. There'll be a lot more Samsung. There'll be loads of Samsungs. I mean, people think there's loads of Samsungs in the West. You ain't seen to India yet, because people do earn very, it wasn't a long time ago that India was a poor country. In some places, it still is a very poor country. But even the people who have now, got some wealth, as it were, gone into the middle classes, even they are, they still got the mindset of, we need to save as much money as we can because, we're used to being poor. My father-in-law, who used to work for the state electricity board, still to this day, when he gets gifted some clothes for Eid or something like this, he's kind of like, my clothes are fine, none of them are ripped. And he's like, no, but we're just giving you this as a gift. A suit or something like that. And it's like, yeah, but I don't need a suit. Why? Because my old suit's fine. And it's like, yeah, but it's 15 years old. We bought you a new suit. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So, and if you contrast that, because whilst everybody keeps saying that Europe and the States and North America are very different, the UK is very much more on the American side, I would say, than the European side when it comes to the business model around mobile phones. Most people in the UK still buy their phones from a carrier on a contract. Right. Yeah. And if you're paying £30 a month, £35 a month, £40 a month, whatever it might be, the fact that X phone is actually £1,000 MSRP and this one is 600 MSRP, it doesn't mean much to you, because it was only an extra £1 or £2 extra on top. And then, they're great at upselling, aren't they? Everybody's great at upselling. I mean, I've fallen for it myself, when I've gone to buy one thing and then before you know it, I've taken something a lot more because, it was only another this. I have an S25 Ultra, which the only reason I got was because I actually was trying to buy an S24 Ultra because I knew that there wasn't any big difference between the two, and I knew that I knew that it still had the Bluetooth functionality, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go for that. Right. Yeah, and then when I went to the actual websites to check out, it was cheaper to get an S25 Ultra than an S24, and that's before trade-ins came into it. So I was kind of like, I've just been upsold for something I didn't necessarily... Yeah. Did I care about the Snapdragon 8 Elite? Not really. Was I annoyed that the Bluetooth functionality was gone? Yeah, but I actually saved some money. But most people obviously aren't saving money. Most people are going to be spending more. They'll be spending, maybe not be massively more, but...
To sneak in there, though, and here in the United States, I'm starting to encounter non-tech enthusiasts, or tech non-enthusiasts, however we want to say that. People who don't keep up with technology as any kind of hobby. That, they bought their phone through a carrier and the monthly bill sort of eclipses how much that phone really cost, right? They didn't feel it all in one big chunk. But now we're starting to see people that are getting locked into like 3-year contracts.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? It would be kind of nice if when I finally just buy a phone, I don't have this additional $30 or $40 or $50 payment. Now we're starting to get price sensitive, that monthly bill, because now I also have a Netflix and a Hulu and an Apple TV Plus. And so, you know what? If I didn't pay $50 a month for 3 years on this phone, I could pick up another streamer. I could pay for Spotify Premium or Qobuz or Tidal or something like that. Like I feel the way that we hide this is finally starting to erode. Like people are paying attention to how much money is just leaking out of their bank accounts every month. And we're still running into these things where it's like, what are you doing on your phone? Do you need $1,000 phone to do that? And when I point blank people with that question, you can tell a lot of them had not considered there are less expensive phones.
Mm-hmm.
I could have bought this mid-ranger outright and not had a $50 bill, and I'd still be doing the same things on it. But we trained people, like from your example, like starting in the Galaxy S3, S4 era, that mid-rangers were terrible. Like if you spent less than $500 on a phone, it was awful. Terrible cameras, terrible performance, stuttery, laggy. Oh, who could even? Why would you? But people didn't pay attention that their $500 phone became a $1,000 phone. So now if you go back to the $500 phone, it's the $500 phone that used to be awesome.
Yeah.
That $500 is now a really good phone because it was the really good phone back when $500 was like a price ceiling for a lot of consumers. And you can point that stuff out. You can say, hey, you know, when the iPhone 10 came out, iPhone X, boy, they jumped right to $1,000, didn't they?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, yeah, that's weird. You know, like we don't educate, so you do need to kind of spoon feed the people around you this stuff. But like, I've got a friend who just jumped on a OnePlus 12R, and it's blowing her mind because she's never had real fast charging before. And the cameras are above what she needs to run after her daughter. Her daughter's a soccer player. My wife is on a Pixel 8. We splurged ahead of the Pixel 8A and got her a Pixel 8. You know, my mom is on a OnePlus 11. You know, like these little victories that we get, they plant seeds. It's never going to be, oh, well, consumers are going to see the light. Now we're going to see this change, because marketing is an oppressive force in this conversation. I can reach tens of thousands of people on a video, and Apple can make an ad where a little girl says, "What's a computer?" and, you know, blow up every major market, and people will just kind of cluck along because they're familiar with Apple and they like.
I hated that.
Well, and rightfully, right? Because that's they're kind of going mask off. They're telling us what they think of us. And it's not a good look, and it doesn't make people feel good about spending money on that product. But they'll do a couple other feel-good ads, and then we'll sort of goldfish memory forget that they once told us to our faces we were too stupid to understand what a computer is. If you remind people, it makes them a little antsy about how they spend money. But then that's another wonderful opportunity to just double down. Like, what should I do? Get rid of my iPhone? And you can say, no. Just keep your iPhone out of a landfill and you'll be happier.
Yeah.
You liked your phone, right? Put a new battery in it and it's like you'll have a brand new phone again. Do you want to spend $1,000 on another phone, or do you want to spend $100 on a battery replacement? What do you want to do? And then it's like a world of possibilities opens up, and it's better for the environment. It's better for their finances. It's better for, you know, when you pay off your car, do you immediately want to jump on a new car payment? No, you kind of want to go a couple months and just like, hey, I own this car now. I want to keep spending money on it. Well, this phone supposedly will last you 5 years. Let's see. Just try.
And that is something I am seeing a lot of. People are holding on to devices for a lot longer. They come to the end of their contract, they'll move to a SIM-only plan. You know, and I mean, like,
oh, and how good does that feel? I mean, come on.
Oh yeah,
you paid it off, and you're like
the free. Well, I mean, for years I've been doing this now. I've been having SIM only and buying my phones outright. But I understand I'm on a good wage. I'm a doctor, so I probably can do at least splurge out the outlay in that way. No, the other thing that you mentioned about India, which I thought was very interesting, is about how it is a mobile first computing experience. People. I remember my brother-in-law's a doctor as well over in India, and he was sat there doing his timetable for all the different residents that were going to be working on the cardiac ITU in Microsoft Excel on a Realme GT Millennium Edition. I remember that phone because I got him it as a present.
Right.
Snapdragon 778G, and he was doing the whole thing. I was just sat there going, dude, just open up your laptop and do it. How can you do it like that? But actually, he was able to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And nearly everything else, it's like they completely bypassed the computer step. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And
well, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't like desktop and laptop adoption in India like a tiny percentage?
Oh yeah, because
the market there.
Yeah, because it's not as portable, and electricity is a problem as well. I mean, and I think this is why you see that the brands who are heavily trying to break India are the ones who go really on the fast charging thing, because it is most apartment blocks have their own generator because the electricity grid is that fragile. Right. On top of that, most apartments will have an inverter, as in something that stores charge. So that if the generator goes and the electricity grid goes, you've still got some electricity. But then you have to be careful with what you do with that. So we've had that a couple of times. And, I'd come out of the shower and I'd get my hairdryer out to dry the 3 strands of hair that I've got on the top of my head. And then suddenly it'd all go black. And I'd be like, what's going on? Oh, you've shorted out the inverter. And, sure you can manage without hair drying your your bald head. And I'm like, yeah, okay, fair point. And so in that scenario, if you've got a phone that you connect up and in 10 minutes it's gone from 0 to 50, then that is a selling point for you, isn't it? You're going to go for that kind of thing. I think the way that I look at laptops and desktops in India is very similar to the way that I look at 2G, 3G, and 4G and 5G in Western countries. We adopted everything when it first came out. So now we've got lots of legacy hardware that needs upgrading. Your masts need upgrading. Yeah, things like that. And that's slow because capital investment in the West is always slow.
Right.
I can only talk about the UK. It takes us 20 years to build a train line. And remember, we're a tiny
building them. It's taking us 20 years to talk about whether or not we should examine the feasibility of discussing the potential of maybe opting for a train line. At least you're actually trying to get some tracks down.
Yeah, well, bear in mind we're a much smaller country as well. So anyway, but that's beside the point.
Fair.
Whilst in India, definitely, and it's true. I noticed this in Morocco when I went to Morocco last year. I noticed it in Saudi Arabia when I went there the year before. 4G, 5G is everywhere. You can go in the middle of the desert, right? And you'll have so a friend of mine, he works for Network Rail. It's basically a work from home. So Network Rail is the not-for-profit government company which runs the rail track. So not the rail service, the actual tracks, right?
Okay.
And it's called one of these hands-off things so that the government can say it's not a government department. We all know it's government money that's going in and any profits go to the government. So, anyway, he had to visit Pakistan. Somebody had passed away. He took his laptop with him and he was doing all of his calls in the middle of the Pakistani wilderness on a 5G connection that was perfect, that nobody realized that he was sat in the back of a Land Cruiser in the countryside. He said, I didn't take a single day of leave. I worked, and timing wise, it meant that, I worked, later in the evening, did all the stuff in the daytime, and so therefore having a mobile first, ecosystem or computing model is something you can implement in a place like India. Here,
Yeah.
it's just more difficult. I allegedly have 5G in my area, but I know that the exact road which I live on is the black spot. That exact
Yeah.
road, unfortunately. Okay, then all right, I want to connect up my fiber optic broadband. Now my fiber optic broadband at best will give me 50 megabits at best. And even if I want,
Yeah.
even if I wanted to pay for more, I can't, because there physically isn't the cable here
Right.
to do it, because nobody's upgraded it. People put the original one 15, 20 years ago. The one thing I would caution, though, about the Indian model is we rightly are worried a lot about the data that we're handing over to big tech and to these big tech companies.
Sure.
Yeah. The amount of data that is being leaked by the average Indian citizen on their Android phone is scary. I have gone and I have seen, for example, again, cousins saying, "Oh, I installed this app. It's brilliant. What's it called? Oh, it's called Truecaller. It tells you whoever's calling you." Yeah,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and then you're like, "Let me just have a look at that." And part of the EULA is you upload your own contacts to their server.
Right.
Yeah, and they're like, "Yeah, but."
So you're not, yeah, and it's scarier still when it's not just violating your privacy, but it's giving up everyone their personal information.
Yeah.
Too.
I mean, I remember once actually I did have an app like that when on my early smartphones. I'm trying to remember which one it was. It was probably a Galaxy S6 or something, and I had an app like that was pre-installed. And it with the junior doctor I was working with, I said, you won't do this procedure on your own. You do this procedure on your own. I'll take a step back so that because you need to learn how to do it.
Right.
I'll just be. Yeah, I'll be in the office. You have any problems, you give me a call straight away. Oh, she goes, "Oh, I haven't got your number." So I said, "Okay, here's my number. Ring it." Right? She rang it. Now I had my phone out like that, and it came up with her name because I had this app installed. And she was like, "How have you got my number?" I said, "I haven't got your number. My name just came up." And I'm like, I have absolutely no idea how that happened. And then that was when I looked into it, realized, and thought, I'm uninstalling that. I don't think I'm going to use anything like that ever again.
Right.
And so there's a huge amount of data. The other example is, I don't know if you saw, you must have seen, everybody pays via QR codes in India. PhonePe, Paytm, this, that, and the other. That is the Unified Payments Initiative that is allegedly open sourced from the Indian government, where they can track every single transaction.
Yeah.
So every single transaction that anybody makes, the government has a record of. Mm-hmm. That scares me. They know which insurance companies you've got. They know which phone lines you've got. You can sit there and pay for your gas bill all without even leaving the app.
So this is where our conversations about the political process become so crucial. Mm-hmm. Is when you're describing this like, oh, well, Indians are going to be giving up this kind of data if they're not paying attention to these apps. I mean, that's happening here in the United States, and that's happening in the UK too.
Yeah.
Every month we have bulletins on these apps were actually just kind of scrapers or malware or something like that. And maybe millions of people might have been affected, but Google and Apple really aren't doing their due diligence in weeding out those types of scenarios.
Well, I mean, they're actively encouraging it, I would say. I mean,
they make more money on.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Any ads or.
I mean, I know I mentioned specific apps in India, but half of those are Google. I mean, one of them, one of those QR code paying things is called Google Pay. It's very confusing branding. Yeah. Because it's not the same Google. It's not it's not the same Google Pay that we've got over here, which is NFC based. But but yeah.
But the point.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to wrap up that point though. Here in the United States, we start to try and treat every us versus them political conversation as both sides bad. So I'll just vote for whoever makes me sort of feel cool in this moment. And if it's someone who's kind of a bully and a con man, I'm going to vote for them because, I would be a bully and a con man too if I had gold-plated toilets. I think what we've forgotten is once you've elected a representative, once you've elected and put a political party into power, that is not the end of the citizen's journey. that is just the beginning of applying pressure to that political entity, political party, political representative, so that we hold them to task for the things they promised they would do.
Yeah.
And so when the Indian government comes up with this system, I think it's very impressive. This QR code universal payment system, they have managed to end run around all of the problems that we faced here in the United States, where we went from credit cards, we kind of had chip and pin, we kind of had tap and pay. Apple got to dictate for us, well, this is going to be how payments are going to be done. And then there was this huge gap until we could finally make terminals that were universally accessible to Apple payment systems and Google payment systems. Google was trying to make a payment competitor. The carriers got involved because they wanted their own payment processing. So we didn't get anything. And Apple Pay was allowed to remain unchallenged for 2 or 3 years. So you're not wrong. It is concerning how much information the Indian government can track on every one of the citizens that are employing that system. But to me, it is still a net positive, if we're talking about potential harms, that a trillion-dollar corporation hasn't told Indian consumers, this is what you're going to do because it benefits us the most. So now it's up to the Indian citizenry to hold their government to task on what that information is used for, how that information is utilized, how that information is accessed. And you can, as a citizen, apply pressure to a government. As a citizen of a country, you cannot apply pressure to a trillion-dollar corporation.
Yeah.
They are only beholden to their shareholders. So it's on us to say politics is not a dirty word when we talk about tech.
Mm-hmm.
Because how do you want to get raked? Do you want to get raked by a government out of control? Do you want to get raked by a trillion-dollar brand? What are we doing? Get involved. If you're this upset about it that you're going to leave comments on my YouTube channel, you could have taken that comment and sent it to an MP.
Yeah. No, I mean, we often get into, I particularly get into trouble for mentioning too much politics on any time that I'm talking.
There's no such thing.
Exactly.
Everything is politics.
Exactly. Everything, there was a famous saying about you can take the politician out of politics, but you can't get the politics out of the politician. It works actually for human beings in general. You will never get, there's always going to be that aspect to it. And I think what doesn't help is, I'm still a little bit confused about the American political system. I've got to be completely honest. And I think I know it's this kind of stuff. But at least in the UK...
We live here and we're confused too.
In the UK, we have probably the worst type of representative democracy. If you were to design one, we've probably got the worst. In that we have this first past the post system. Whoever wins the plurality of votes in a seat becomes the MP. This therefore means that you generally need between 30 and 35% of the vote to become a majority government, that's a democratic deficit in my view. If almost 7 out of 10 people didn't vote for that party, yet. So, I'm a Labour man. I say I'm centre left. I'm quite open about that. And even I think to myself, it's not right that the Labour Party got 32% of the vote and ended up with a majority of 160, to the extent that if they wanted to name, Sunday as, Phillips Day or something rubbish like that, they could do it because they've got the numbers in the parliament to do it.
They could decree.
They could. Anyway, so, and I think that leads to people getting disillusioned with politics in one sense, and it informs the conversation when it comes to tech, because it's like it's already assumed that the politicians are in the tech giants' pocket anyway, and so why they will sometimes use that as an excuse. They'll say, well, what else do you expect a $1 billion company to do? What else would a $1 billion company to do? They'd want to make money. They'd want to influence things. If you were
a $1 billion company, wouldn't you do that? And it becomes sort of a defensive position because we all don't like it. but what are you gonna do about it? And it sort of absolves that individual. Here in the United States, where I've been kind of trying to shift my discourse over the last year, especially, it's been very disappointing to watch the swings at our federal level. As a new presidential administration comes in, it's just this cleaning of house, and there's no consistency of application of political ideology. And that filters down into like our regulatory agencies. And that to me is one of the most disturbing aspects of like going from Trump to Biden to Trump. The places where we've been, I think, scoring our most important victories, though, has been in our system. We have the separation of federal power and state power. And when we apply pressure at the state level, our voices are a lot louder.
Okay.
You know, buying off a state politician is a lot cheaper, but they're actually in those communities, they're in those neighborhoods, they're in those cities, and it's harder for them to escape the criticism, the ire, the frustration if you go to like a town council meeting.
Yeah.
And I still feel in the UK system, outside looking in, and from what little I understand of UK politics, but I used to love watching Prime Minister's questions.
Yeah.
Especially during the Tony Blair years, because that man could tap dance like nothing I'd ever seen before.
I know, man.
He was brilliant. I get to the end of it, and you're like, I don't think I agreed with a word he said, but man, he's like, he did a cha-cha.
Yeah,
that was incredible.
He used to. There used to be a joke. There used to be a joke about Tony Blair that you could sit there and believe the exact opposite to what he believes.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the conversation, you're like paying him money. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He was that good. That? He was a lawyer. He was a lawyer.
No, but yeah, I mean, tell me that there aren't lots of lawyers,
and his wife was a lawyer,
that are nowhere near as savvy. But that last point, when we scored wins in net neutrality, it's not because we got our federal government after it. It's because we got larger populations at the state level involved in the conversation on net neutrality. When we've scored some of our most recent wins on right to repair legislation, we flipped Texas. Texas is a very conservative, faux libertarian, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Poor people are obviously deficient in God's eyes kind of area of the planet. And yet we still managed to get the Texas legislature on board for right to repair legislation. So for me, it's you start looking at, I elected this individual, and maybe it's just part of a town committee or a town council, and now I'm going to show up. And what are you doing? Because I voted for you, and now there's an expectation that you're going to live up to what you said you were going to accomplish. And if I don't show up, then it's really easy for a massive corporation to dump a couple $1,000s into an election fund and sway the opinion of that local town council member. But it's much harder for me to jet out to Washington, D.C. and try and appeal to the legislators at the top of our federal government. That's not feasible. But I can show up to a city meeting here in my suburban neighborhood and say, I don't like this. I think we need to talk about zoning. I think this is a bad plan. We should be talking about energy distribution and broadband distribution. And how come the high school's here and we can't get our kids good internet access? They have to look at you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. And I think, because we don't have it, because we don't have a federal structure in that sense, because we are still we have a very asymmetric when it comes to devolution and the different countries within the United Kingdom, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and all this.
And correct me if I have this way off, but I feel they've positioned the conversation to make it look daunting and inaccessible at the top level of your government. But that doesn't mean someone can't show up to an MP's office and say, this is not right.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
That there's still that kind of accessibility, and that there are those meetings, and they have to be a part of their local communities. There has to be some access there. So for us, it's this weird split between a state government, which is almost like its own country, and then our federal system, which is this almost EU umbrella. So we have these completely different metaphors for how we accomplish this. But to me, there are still some similarities in the British system where you would be able to apply pressure. And the vote is just the beginning. Once you voted, now you're saying, hey, this is the ticket I'm going to punch. And as soon as this election's over, I'm going to be in your face.
Yeah. I mean, we saw this.
I like you, and I'm still going to come down hard on you.
So
the expectations that I have.
We saw this a lot in the general election last year, especially around the whole Palestine-Gaza thing. And there are a number of cabinet ministers now. There's a number of cabinet ministers now.
In London.
Yeah.
I was in London when that vote was going down. It was wild seeing your TV broadcasts like talking about all of these like international and trade issues and stuff like that. Yeah. We got a black cab to Heathrow, and it was a 45-minute drive, and it was like out of every movie you've ever seen. Working class black cabbie telling you and this guy and what's going on with your Trump, and I'm pretty conservative myself, but I don't think it's right that this happens, and these people that are just shoplifting from stores, and you're like, this is incredible. It was really it was really an exciting time to be over in your country.
Yeah, I mean the British aren't want for opinions. Let me put it that way. If you want four opinions, you ask 3 people. Do you know what I mean? It's like that. You know.
But to that point, that's something so accessible to tap into, because I feel the United States right now is grinding on apathy. When our voter turnout is this low, we're not going to win our next elections. If we're liberals, we're not going to win our next elections by appealing to the right. We're going to win our next elections by getting the apathetic to show up. And I feel like in one of the small cultural differences between our countries, the fact that I encountered so many people in the UK over a week, and we were there for 10 days, and everyone could just jump into a conversation and talk about your local politics, EU politics, and United States politics. Some of them more educated than others, but everyone willing to kind of jump in to some degree, that I feel you probably have a slightly better on-ramp to getting people invested in the political action. Instead of getting them convinced that, hey, I'm going to rant on Twitter and that feels like I'm doing something, take that Twitter rant and literally just present it to your MP. Literally cut and paste and make sure they hear it, because they're not going to seek you out on Twitter. And it feels like a catharsis. It feels like I've said my piece. I have an opinion and I told the internet about it, but you did nothing. And it's so little work to do the exact same thing that you already did in packaging your opinion in 240 characters or less, and then just send it to the person who actually needs to hear it, instead of just sort of belching it out into the void of the internet. Yeah. And I actually do believe this. I believe areas, especially throughout the EU, I think France is probably a great example of this kind of discourse actually having meaningful impact on the citizens of France mobilizing and acting on policy. I think the UK can accomplish a lot more. It's just you've got to get people over this hump of, well, I voted for a government. Now what is the government going to do for me? No, you voted for a government so that you could tell that government what to do. You voted for a government so you could show up and actually sway. But if you were Labour and a Conservative Party is installed, they're not going to listen to you. So you vote Labour so that Labour will listen to you. And that's when you actually got to start working. It's the beginning of your job. It's not the end of your job.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's, as I said, you know, when the whole Palestine-Gaza, I mean, it's still going on, for God's sake. But, I mean, you know, there are a number of cabinet ministers now who very, very... It was a close shave them getting into parliament, because the people had figured out that, you know, these are the guys who are likely to be the next health minister, the next chancellor, the next this. And they put up very strong spirited campaigns. And it did... Yeah. You saw the rhetoric, at least from the Labour Party rank and file, change when they realised, you know, that public opinion was somewhere completely different to where their opinion has been.
Their policy was guiding. Yeah.
You know, and yeah, so I get what you mean, and I think it's not just about apathy. The worry that we have, and it's a worry that I have, I'll be honest with you, is you look at populists like the orange baby in your country. And somebody once complained that I called him the orange baby, so now I'm going to keep saying it now because it's my democratic right. I'll say what I like. And you see a lot more of these kind of hard right in places like Italy, France, the Netherlands. I mean, the Netherlands is weird. I mean, the definition of the most liberal country in the world somehow has what we would call a hard right, even far right party in power. And I think that worries people a lot because what they think is that if you get people really invested in their politics, they're going to spread to those areas and not stay in the middle. But actually, I think that's a fallacy. I think if you get people engaged in politics, then they're more likely, because most people generally are centrists of some description. The vast majority of people. Yes, there's some bit on little bit on this right side, on the right side. I mean, I say I'm centre left, but I'm probably socially a bit more conservative, but I'm economically more liberal. Everybody's kind of in this place. Because they're all.
This is where I just want to jump in, and this is where words completely betray us, because you saying you're center left in British politics would probably get you labeled a radical socialist here in the United States.
Yeah. Very true.
So when I say I'm pretty far left, I'm probably a bit more moderate compared to what British politicians would espouse. But out here, just my ideas on I don't think people should die because they can't afford healthcare is taken to some kind of radical socialist extreme.
Yeah.
So this language becomes a barrier to us discussing the ideas.
It's like Winston Churchill said that the British and the Americans are a people divided by same language.
Yeah.
Divided by a common language. That's it. Divided by a common language.
But again, like I can point back to this win in Texas that we had for right to repair, kind of circling back to some tech in our politics. The idea that you should buy something and then be allowed to own it and do what you want with it is trying to be corporations are trying to present that like that's some kind of radical leftist idea, even though that's been the entire history of consumer commerce since the Industrial Revolution. I bought this thing and it broke, so I tried to fix it, and maybe I fixed it and maybe I didn't. And I bought this thing and I want to do stuff on it, and I bought this computer and I want to install software on it. This notion that I'm hacking the mainframe because I sideload. Ooh, sideways. I went at Google sideways on Android. I'm doing something hackerish. That's just installing software. You would not blink if you had a Windows PC and you didn't use the Microsoft Store to install a program. You're not sitting there like, I took my Windows 11 machine and I side-loaded VLC. Like that's not a thing. That's not how we talk about this. But we're now acting because we've stifled tech education in this country. We're now raising a population of appliance users, and that to me is one of the rifest areas of abuse from the corporate side and from the political side. So we get to the end of this and you go to Texans and you don't say anything about liberal or conservative. You go up to farmers and you say, wouldn't you like to be able to fix your tractor? And Texans go, heck yeah, because I'm a rugged individualist. And you're like, well, cool. You know what? We're trying to work on legislation so that John Deere can't lock you out of your tractor. Heck yeah, bro, let's do it. And now we've passed right to repair legislation in Texas. And that's a massive market. And lots of companies aren't going to want to have 50 different rules on right to repair. They don't want a Delaware rule and an Oklahoma rule. They're going to look at California, Texas, New York. And those three states are going to define 80% of the policy for something like that. So we have right to repair legislation in California, all along the Western Seaboard, all of the states there. And we just got Texas. So who's going to mess with us now? Because if I appeal and say, hey, I'm trying to get this information on repairing my Chromebook, and the company's not giving it to me because I live in Delaware, and I'm now going to request it in Texas. You have to comply with Texas state law. So I'm going to set my VPN to Texas, and now you're going to give me this information. And if you don't, there is actually something I can appeal to the state attorney general, and now you're going to have some kind of legal issue in compliance. So that to me is like when we discuss this stuff, when you're talking about like how many countries are kind of pushing right, and I understand why populism becomes entrenched in a lot of these communities. What I feel from the liberal perspective, and I don't know if you would agree on your own Labor Party right now, but I think we've lost sight of how transactional a lot of people expect these interactions to be. I did this, so what do I get for it? And we don't package our victories very well. We've passed right to repair legislation. Well, what does that mean? What did I get for that? What did you give me? I supported.
It's the individualist capitalist mindset, which is unfortunately the default position in the West.
But look, like corporations have no problems preying on our insecurities, making us feel terrible about ourselves, making everything toxic and awful so that we'll buy things to feel good. And our leftist politicians can't figure out, oh, if we tell people we did this and we tell them they get stuff, then they'll like it. This is how we won in Texas. Again, you go to ostensibly people that never would have allied themselves with leftist policies, and you tell them, I'm giving you something. Your vote mattered here. I'm giving you this. And now you have a thing. Don't you like the thing? Cool. Make sure to vote for me in the midterms. Right? And that to me is become one of the massive holes in this conversation. Either it's a politician that probably is being unduly influenced by massive corporate interests, so they just exclude themselves from the conversation so that they don't have to betray where some of their money is coming from, or it's someone who's just very not media savvy. And so I did the thing, we succeeded, and now we move on to the next challenge. And you're like, no, you forgot the most important step where you told the people you represent, this is what I gave you. You voted for me, and we worked together on this, and now you get a thing. And I think a lot of people are motivated when you tell them, you got a thing. Yeah. Instead of, I hurt someone else, and I took something away from someone else, they think, you took something away from someone I don't like, and now I should get something for that. But in that construct, the conservative side of this never has to put up their numbers. Because a part of it was, oh, we took something away from someone. Great! Yeah. Now they're not going to bother me as much. So there's already a lopsided aspect to this conversation where the reward for a lot of people can just be the cruelty. But even the people who
I've seen
feel
this
rewarded
before.
by
where people will say like, you know, I don't care that I'm hungry as long as this guy is hungry as well.
That had it worse.
Yeah.
No, that they got it worse.
Yeah.
See, I'm willing to go without if they go without more.
Yeah. Exactly.
and so how do you reach someone like that? You're never going to appeal to their higher standards or their greater graces. You appeal to that person by saying, well, what if you had more? It's exhausting because like every conversation in tech, I have to come at sideways. Like I want to see better broadband distribution for rural communities because I feel that's how we're going to bring in the United States, probably the next 10 to 20 million people onto the internet. Not as impressive as India, but there are a lot of people here who do not have legitimate access to broadband, healthcare, education, entertainment, and they can't contribute anything to a global discussion. So I have to go around and convince people like, well, you know, if we supported this fiber initiative, your broadband would get a little bit better and a little bit cheaper. Oh, that's great. That's for me. Well, yeah, but now also your neighbor who had nothing is going to get something. But I can't tell you that. I have to tell you, oh, this is for you so that you have something better. And it's so exhausting. It's
Yeah,
like
no,
you've
no,
got
I
to
can
code
imagine.
every conversation sideways. But that's the only way that we'll make progress. If it's not transactional and they don't get something for it, they're not going to be interested in talking about it. And then someone else gets to swoop in and say, but I'll take something away from someone. And in our evolved primate brains, but if you take pie away from another person, I get more pie. But that's not how it works.
Yeah. So I
not
mean,
unless you're a billionaire at the top.
yeah. So the funny thing about the thing that you mentioned about rural broadband is that was a big initiative in this country to get, you know, broadband out into the Highlands of Scotland and whatever. It was it was the Conservative Party that brought that legislation in, not the Labour Party. So I think
Give
that I
people
think
something.
yeah, I think the point that you're saying about how definitely we're divided by a common language. To think that there was the Conservative Party that put that on their manifesto and put it as a thing that they were doing, and people would vote for them for that, whilst, you know, over the pond,
Well,
it's
doesn't that make perfect sense? If we get, I mean, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a conservative UK politician, and again, please correct me if I'm off the pulse here. But if you were looking at those districts and those areas, and you said, how are we going to get the next 5% of voters to the polls, and how are we going to influence them, and who's already likely to vote for us, we're going to go to them and say, hey, let's get you online.
Yeah.
Let's get your kids better computers. And that way, when we feed you the talking points and the initiatives that we want to talk about as conservatives, we can get to you directly.
Yeah.
Because that's where we're going to reach you. So, of course, it makes sense that you would want to broach those communities and get them better broadband capabilities. Again, I mean, like, to me, this isn't a liberal or a conservative issue. It's where do we find common ground and where can we actually improve situations for people? And I feel on the liberal side of this conversation, we're missing the huge opportunities to say, you get stuff. Because that's what the conservatives are really good at packaging, even when it's blatantly not true. We're going to cut your taxes. That means you get more money.
No, it doesn't.
Not really.
No,
not at all. So, especially when we cut away all of the social safety net here in the United States. So that's the problem. I'm so excited by the win in Texas for right to repair, because that was a good example of this is not a partisan issue. And everyone gets something out of the transaction. So everyone's actually walking away pretty happy, except for a couple companies complaining like, oh, but you shouldn't be able to replace the battery in your phone. And they'll be fine. I'm not too worried about the Samsungs, the Googles, and the Apples out there.
I think they'll have enough money, yes. I mean, it's interesting actually that, so this is only the second time that I've talked about Android and tech, as in mobile phone tech, on this podcast. And the last time I did, it veered completely into politics. To the extent that I called it the Android Democratic Party podcast, was a joke, you know. and here too, we have managed to, you know, go on that trip, just to kind of, I mean, because I could talk for hours. I really could. As I said, I'm just enjoying being on with a famous person. But just going straight back to what you use on the daily, because you've spoken a lot about you've spoken about a lot about how you're trying to get more out of the devices that you have. We're probably both in a privileged position of being able to buy multiple different devices. You can you can at least say that it's for work. I mean, I have to just hide all this stuff from the wife. Yeah, I don't think she's gonna like the next purchase. But anyway, moving swiftly on. What is you get a lot of these videos, don't you? But what's in my bag? What's my everyday carry? I'm actually genuinely interested. What are your everyday devices that you use for your computing and technological needs? I mean, I can guess what each category is going to be, but I'll be more interested to know what specific devices you use.
Sure. So if I'm walking out the door, it's usually with a OnePlus. That's where my personal SIM card is. It's really an unbeatable price to performance for the competition we have here in the United States. And I really do genuinely care about battery tech. And I think the best examples of how to improve battery longevity are the brands that are doing good, practical, fast charging. I often have it paired with some kind of smartwatch, but these days I've been relying more on notifications and alerts from smart glasses.
Okay.
So I'll often pop on either the Evan Realities. So this is the Evan Realities. They've got little waveguide optics in the lenses, and I just get notifications and alerts, turn-by-turn navigation up at eye level.
Oh, cool.
Very simple monochromatic screen. It's brilliant. I love moving that. Or if I know I'm not really going to have to go inside and I just want a good pair of sunglasses, I also really like the Vuzix. So these are the Z100. And same thing. This is monocular. This only has one waveguide in the right eye. But again, I don't like having to look at my phone unless I absolutely need to. And I'm getting to the point where I hate the gesture of I'm in a group of people and we're talking and I get a notification on my wrist. That is an intolerably rude gesture to perform in front of someone that our conversation isn't worth my time.
Yeah.
And so now I'll get like this little pop-up up at eye level. It is way less distracting to that interaction. When it comes to audio, I'm kind of all over the place. It really just depends on what I'm feeling that day. I've got, I don't know, 20 or 30 pairs of IEMs and earbuds.
Oh, great. Somebody that has more than me. Fantastic. Because I've got loads of them.
And then from there, I mean, like, if you can kind of see over my left shoulder there, those are two cubbies full of planar magnetic, really high quality dynamic driver, like professional grade headphones. And I'm probably 12 or 13 pairs of headphones deep in there. So it really just kind of depends on what I'm feeling. Like, hey man, today's going to be a jazz day. I'm probably going to go something open back. If I know I'm going to be somewhere with a lot of noise, maybe I'll pull out the Sonys. Maybe I might go for the one more. It just depends on what I'm listening to. I've gotten really granular about my music listening tastes. And then from there, I'm in a very privileged position where I can kind of come up with a carry bag on the fly. And for me, I might go with an older Windows on ARM tablet. I might trot out my laptop. I have the new Lenovo Chromebook. I mean, it really just depends on what I'm trying to accomplish. And that tends to define what I want to use. But across the board, like I've really scaled way back on Samsung. I haven't touched anything Apple in earnest since they were threatening to build backdoors into the iPhone on the promise of reducing abuse materials, but in ways that like would absolutely not, but would help governments like narc. It would help Apple narc on people for governments if the government decided they wanted to have access to people's content. And I'm happy that Apple has kind of about faced on that, but I stopped using Apple products after that, and I really haven't missed it. So then I'll maybe reach for a second phone. These days, my second phone is usually a Vivo or a Xiaomi, just because of the camera tech, and that's kind of the biggies.
Okay,
that's kind of
so
like what I'll actually consider. Like I'm walking out the door, let me pick up these bits and pieces, and then I'm kind of into my day.
I mean, it's interesting about what you mentioned about Apple, in that you have made an ideological. You could argue you made an ideological decision, which is fair. You know, I have.
So sorry to explain. This was a path that I was already on. So I was diehard ride or die Apple back in the Power PC days. I was an Apple product specialist on that contract working with the Department of Energy. We used to sell Xserve servers and those gorgeous G5 dual core, dual socket towers. Like I had my hands in the guts of those things and we drive them up to the labs and there were these like baby supercomputer clusters built on Xserves. I was the Apple guy. I actually have the certificate framed somewhere of going through all of the training courses on Apple to be a product specialist. I was really proud of that. But over time, they've kind of walked away from what I think is a healthy consumer-facing business. And I feel very similarly about Samsung. I started out as a diehard Samsung knight when Samsung was really working their hardest to prove to people that they weren't just ripping off Apple. But then since everything that they've advertised that made them unique, they've kind of about faced and they've tried to copy Apple. So I don't think they are doing business in a great consumer facing way. And then you look into the history of their company and there's a lot of scummy stuff. I don't know that I want to support their business practices anymore. And so every single time I kind of find this pivot, it's just reinforced to me it matters less and less to follow a brand, and it matters more and more to follow competition. Like, I really liked what Google had to offer on the Pixel 3 or 4 years ago. I'm not impressed with what Google's offering today on the Pixel.
So it's a case of taking each device on its merits. Is that what you're kind of trying
instead
to say?
of saying there's a brand ideology and I'm on a winning team because I like this brand, so everything the brand does is fine as long as I get to be a member of that club. It's a little lonelier. I don't have a team competition. There's a much smaller group out there for that. But when it came to Apple specifically, I was already on a path where I just did not like how they were doing business with consumers. I really did not like some of the decisions they'd made on things like repairability and data and access. And you have this incredibly powerful device that you can't do anything with unless Apple gives you permission to do it. And then they started implementing this idea that they were going to open up the iPhone. And the only reason I could figure out why they were doing this was to reduce their server costs. It was such a cynical move. So everything you upload to the cloud has to be accessible to the company that owns those servers. You're putting your data on their hard drive. They have access to it, and they have to comply with a state or a government that requests information on the data that's stored on their computers. So if something gets uploaded there, they have higher server costs by scanning all the data. So what they were going to do is offload the scanning to your phone. And so then your phone will scan and narc on you if you're sending up some naughty images, and Apple doesn't have to foot the bill for that server cost. It's the only reason I could come up with in my brain for why Apple would try to make the iPhone less secure. This was the company that used to fight the California state government on access and unencrypting iPhones. Remember, we gave Apple all that praise for privacy and security, and Apple's going to protect our interests. And I think it was around that iPhone 4 era. And I was into that. That is a good corporate move. You're going to protect the data on our devices. So why would Apple about face and start narking on users with a system that is rife for potential abuse, rife for false positives? Why would they do this? And the only thing that makes sense to me is it would impact their bottom line on server costs. Why would you eject all of the goodwill of being the company that used to protect you? So from that point on, we've gotten a lot of insight on how Apple's been run. Tim Cook recently really screwed the pooch when it came to mobile app payments.
Oh God, that was
that case go down with Epic.
Oh man, I could have overdosed on Schadenfreude when that happened, man. Seriously, it was brilliant.
But we actually got confirmation on internal policy. Schiller went to Tim Cook and said, "Don't do this."
Yeah.
And Tim Cook said, "No, we're going to do this." To the point where one of another executive that now I can't recall his name perjured himself in court to protect Tim Cook's terrible decision there. And so where do you want to do business with a company like that? Do you want to do business with a company that treats you that poorly and thinks so little of you? But that's not, me yelling into the internet is not going to undo $1 billion ad campaign that Apple's going to put out about, it just works and privacy, that's the iPhone. I can't fight that. But literally, we've seen the actual communications. We've seen the terrible corporate behavior, the terrible executive behavior, how, man, they're trying to squeeze blood from stones in a really ghastly way. So why, even to buy an iPhone, to say you shouldn't buy it, why would I want to give them any attention, any traffic on my tiny little nerd enthusiast channel? It's the last, it's the last protest that I can offer is, I don't like the way they do business, and until I see that change, I don't feel it's responsible for me to cover their product.
So the thing that I found interesting was it can be difficult to marry up sometimes the taking the device at its own merit and the company behind it. So,
sure.
So for example, there is to use Apple as an example. you see a lot of people still have MacBooks because, and when you speak to them, they're like, yeah, I'm fed up with Windows, I'm fed up with this, I'm fed up with that, I prefer this operating system, get out of my way, it just works, inverted commas,
it just works.
Yeah,
right,
makes me laugh every single time. And yeah, and so there is a little bit of the, well, why should I, just for purely ideological reasons, use a poorer tool for a particular job, right? But at the same time, I get entirely what you're saying about, it leaves a bad taste in the mouth that, you are involved in a corporation that's doing this kind of. How do you? Because there is times when, even I, as someone who has never actually had an iPhone, unbelievably, and I counted that I've been through 56 phones in the last 10 years, but anyway, it's beside the point. Wife doesn't know that bit either. She doesn't watch this podcast. It's fine. Yeah, never had an iPhone, but there are times when there are times when I would have had to have said that, given the choice at that particular point in time, the best phone would have been that, I don't know, iPhone 4 or that iPhone 6S or whatever. No. I mean, as an example, I'm saying. I mean, I'm trying to come out.
So to address that, first of all, iPhone 4 had antenna-gate. iPhone 5
I mean,
had rattly buttons and bad build quality. iPhone 6 had improper mounting of components that lasted all the way through the iPhone 8. So where were the reviewers who mentioned, oh, you might not want to buy this phone, it's got some problems, right? So when you bring up something like MacBook, I love it. I think since the introduction of the iPhone, Apple's single greatest contribution to consumer-facing technology was the M series chips.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
When they left Intel and they went to ARM. So that should have been a great opportunity for techies to say, we've been playing with ARM on Chromebooks and Windows for years before Apple made this transition. Are they as good as a top-of-the-line Intel chip or AMD chip? No, but they are incredibly power efficient. And for the consumers out there who need a low-cost machine, this is actually a really good solution for their needs. We have that discourse on Chromebooks. That's pretty accessible. But like, I can literally reach down here and here's my Robo Ancala. And it's a clone of the Windows Surface Pro.
Yeah.
This is running the Snapdragon 8CX Gen 3. And when it first came out, it was roughly as powerful as like an 11th gen Intel Core i3 when you would have to emulate software. But isn't that what we're constantly saying? Average consumers are fine with that kind of like middle tier. It's not a Celeron, it's not a Pentium, it's a Core i3. That's a great machine for a daily driver, web browsing, get word processing done kind of experience. And after the success of Apple Silicon and the MacBooks with the M series chips, Windows has improved tremendously.
Yeah,
now I'm rocking something that's more like a Core i5 because of all the ARM software that's compatible now with this older chip. So this has actually been improving significantly since its original launch. And then on top of that, now I can point to some other initiatives like MediaTek's new Companion and Qualcomm's new Snapdragon X Elite. So there isn't one, well, obviously Apple's the only way to go. If I care about battery life and performance, yeah, a MacBook might actually outperform my Surface Laptop 7. But do I care? Because I'm using my software the way I want to do it with incredible battery life, and I'm doing better than any of the Intel machines that I would have been using. And so that kind of nuance to the conversation gets lost because techies will just go in and say, but, really, MacBook is the best. And you're like, no, it's not. It's not the best. It's not the best for everybody. What if I want to upgrade the storage on my machine after 2 years? I guess I got to throw my laptop away, right? Whereas here, I have a little pin tool, and I can pop it out and put in a new SSD. What are we doing? What are we really trying to accomplish by using these sort of broad, truthy, generalized consumer descriptions of technology, when instead we can point to tangible differences, nuanced separations, and someone could actually land a better fit for their needs as opposed to just being on the winning team? So, that whole era was really exciting to talk about when the M1 came out, because it validated everything that I'd been saying about ARM chips for consumer computers. Perfectly. I was at Newegg arguing with PC gamer bros to say, yeah, but your auntie doesn't need an RTX 2080 Ti. She needs something that can write documents and reply to emails, and she wants it with better battery life. So she's not going to get a gaming laptop or build some massive workstation computer. She should probably have something about as powerful as her phone, but with a massive laptop battery. And then she'd be crazy happy with that kind of a machine. And now I have that. I have that Lenovo right in front of me. The battery life on this thing is insane. The performance is very, very good. Even if it's not.
Is that the Yoga? Is that the Yoga 7X?
No. This is the literally it's just called the Lenovo Chromebook 14.
Oh,
but it's
the MediaTek one. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, because I was going to say, because down here I have. This is going to probably destroy my credibility as a Linux podcaster.
Well, I'll join you, because it was actually Chromebooks that got me back into Linux.
Yeah, this is a Lenovo Yoga Slim 7X.
Yeah.
Which I've got to be honest. I mean, I have run Linux on it, but it's not right. Mm-hmm. It's not there yet. I don't think. I think because it's there needs to be some more upstream kernel stuff done. But
sure.
God, that battery life. Oh my God. Oh
so
my!
You talk to your family and friends?
It makes using Windows bearable.
Yeah. Yes, and that I'm unplugging the machine and not seeing my CPU performance fall to like a third of its potential performance. And you can sit there and I love the work that like Wendell and Gamers Nexus and Hardware Unboxed do. They are speaking to a passionate community of gamers and hardcore PC enthusiasts. But when they sit there and they smirk about ARM machines, they're forgetting we still need a thin and light, low power draw, high performance solution that Intel has been completely incapable of delivering. And even for the improvements that AMD has made, they do not match that same performance per watt.
I mean, the Lunar Lake chips. I mean, the Lunar Lake chips look pretty good, I must say.
No, look at every single review, and they conflate plugged-in performance with unplugged performance.
Ah, okay.
Look at how many reviewers put that data out there. Look, it gets such great battery life when I'm not using it hard. And then look at how impressive the performance is when it's plugged in. And I know for a fact that my Windows Surface 7 is going to lose to a Core, what is it, Core Ultra 250?
Yeah.
255?
255.
I know it's going to lose when that 255 is plugged in. I know. Okay. If I'm in DaVinci Resolve, I'm cutting up 4K video, I know I'm going to lose. But I know I'm going to kick butt when I'm unplugged and I'm editing and rendering that video, where that 255 isn't going to hang.
Wow.
So guess what's more important to me, like when I'm traveling and I'm on an airplane?
Yeah. I'd completely missed that. Because I was very much like, because I remember when I bought this, I was very much tempted by I think it was an Asus ZenBook that had one of the first Core 9 255s or 256V.
Yeah.
And I was seeing the stuff, and the thing that was tempting me was the fact that because it's still an x86 architecture, it would be easier for Linux to work on it. And I knew that there was going to be a bit of a problem with an ARM, blah blah blah. Anyway, so I watched a lot of content, and I've got to be honest, I completely missed that it was plugged-in performance.
But I mean, I like the work that the folks over at Notebook Check do. I think they, again, whether or not you get into their editorial, I think the consistency of their testing is very good, and they tend to not overly change a testing protocol for one type of product over another. And you'll see like the Core Ultra 7, the newest version of a Core Ultra 7 in a laptop is probably kicking the crap out of the first generation Snapdragon X Elite, especially if GPU performance is something you care about at all. I can still play Crysis Remastered on my Surface 7. I'm fine. really my gaming these days is like Hades 2 and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and roguelites and platformers and stuff like that. So I get it. I can still play all the fun games that I really like to play.
I got Hades
but I can't
too
play
on my.
Fortnite,
I got Hades on my Steam Deck. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, actually, but I've just downloaded it.
It's real good.
Yeah.
It's fun. But that point being, you look at what they do, and then you see like, oh well, the min max power draw on this Intel changes, and I'm very I feel it's misrepresenting what the product category is, because I feel Qualcomm was very upfront. This is not a chip for gamers, but it can play some games. And I don't think they were beating around the bush. And then you have, cats like Gamers Nexus and Wendell, popping out there to say like, oh, but you can't play games on it. You're like, that wasn't the point.
That wasn't the point. Yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed with the way that they've sold, though, because I mean the numbers haven't been great, have they, for the Snapdragon laptops? The only thing that worries me about that is, would Microsoft or any of these manufacturers now get cold feet and just say, oh, forget this, we're going to jump back onto the AI hype dragon instead to make our money?
Yeah, absolutely. But that's also a problem of marketing and a horrific mismanagement by Microsoft.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just embarrassing,
Look at all the things that we've been discussing. Like, what does your auntie care about with a little laptop? She wants it to be thin, light. She wants it to look cute, and she wants it to last longer and not have fans that kick on like jet engines, right? All of these things that like a MacBook does well. Well, I've got a Chromebook ARM in front of me. I've got a Surface Pro clone in front of me. I've got my Surface 7s just on the other side of this desk. I can't reach it. And instead, Microsoft said, well, what consumers really want is for us to screenshot every piece of information that's on their screen and feed it into our AI.
So, I mean, we talked about this quite a bit on... we talked about this quite a few times on Linux OTC, and it was very much a case of they so spectacularly shot themselves in the foot with the marketing of the Copilot Plus PCs that if I didn't know better, and if I didn't employ Harlan's razor, which is one of my favorite philosophical things, do not ascribe to malice that which can be adequately described by incompetence, right?
For sure.
I would have thought there was trying to torpedo their own business. The minute you go to tell anybody, whether they're a Linux nerd that I talk to on these kinds of forums, or whether it's somebody I meet at work or someone who's a diehard Apple fanboy, the minute I tell them that, look, I have a laptop, right, which I charge once a week at best, right, because my usage is concentrated bursts in between cases, in between this, and then it stays in my bag again for the end of the day. When I realized that after I got discharged from hospital, and I do my best to stay away from work, but something will always get to you, isn't it? And there was one email that I had to fire off just to address a specific problem. So even though I was off, I decided I'll do it. And I opened up this laptop, which had not been used for at the very least 2 weeks. I think it was 3 weeks, and it still had 90% battery on it, right? And it was just ridiculous, right?
And it took you right back to where you had left it off.
Yeah, and the minute you say that to anybody, they're like, wow, that's fantastic. When was this released? When was that released? Oh, this was one of those ones from last year. Oh, you mean those Copilot ones where Microsoft are going to copy your screen and then send it up and this and this? Oh, I'm not doing that. And I'm like, it's like, as I said,
it's an own goal. Yeah,
it's such an absolute own goal that and as I said, even well-informed people, Linux nerds that I was chatting to, the minute I told them that, they're like, "Have you managed to get Ubuntu onto it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I have. It's not a great experience, but you can get it on." Right. I said, "Oh, I might have to get one of these when they come down in price. I would recommend it." So
this is exactly the kind of confirmation that I see when I say what passes for tech education for the vast majority of consumers is really just marketing. They're not, all these techies out there that have YouTube channels who purport to talk to the average consumers, they're not reaching a broad consumer base.
They're just talking down to the lowest common denominator. It's what they're doing.
For entertainment of tech enthusiasts. The biggest channels out there, it's kind of a big deal when one of their videos breaks 10 million views. This year, we're going to move 1.2 billion phones. So who are they reaching?
Yeah.
They're not reaching a broad consumer base. They're just professional wrestling tech infotainment. So they position one company as a winner, one company as a loser, and that almost perfectly matches. If you put those brand names into Google Trends, whichever trend line is higher is going to be the one that wins in a comparison or in a showdown. So I love showing like the Surface Pro 9 SQL, and I love showing the Robo and Kala, because it's a perfect example of a product that I feel like got off to a rough start, but was way more capable than the reviewers led us to believe. Like, especially you want to say, hey, look at Linux support. This Robo and Kala, that Snapdragon 8CX Gen 3 is an underpowered chip. It was not competitive against Intel and AMD at similar price points. Until you fired up Windows subsystem for Linux and all of the apps that were already compatible with ARM chips, that performance curve was radical. I'm trying to run Windows programs on this thing, and the performance is terrible. I fire up WSL, and the performance is fantastic, and I'm still getting all the battery benefits of using a little tablety phone-style chip. But where was the larger conversation for that? I mean, I feel, especially for your audience, the Linux nerds will feel me on this, because even when you're stuck with Windows, you don't have to be stuck with Windows. You can get around Windows a little bit, even inside Windows. So it's galling. It really is frustrating to me, because it's to take this all the way back, where we started this kind of tangent from talking about Apple and you know, it's very easy for us to just fall into some kind of broad colloquial truthiness. Well, I mean, MacBook, you got to go with a MacBook. And you don't.
Yeah. You
can address individuals with their needs and say, this is what your alternatives and your options are. And you'll often save money. If you're telling me you just need an It Just Works machine, maybe you should look at a Chromebook. Maybe you should look at Windows on ARM. Maybe you should kind of veer from some of this, you know, common knowledge, because it's not common knowledge. It's common marketing. It's common advertising.
There's one interesting point. There's one interesting point which somebody once told me, which was because I was surprised that he was a free and open source advocate, and used multiple things in the Linux community. Actually, there's a couple of people that would fit this bill actually, and yet they had iPhones and they had MacBooks, right? And I was a bit slightly taken aback by it, and I was a bit kind of like, I don't understand. Okay, on the one hand you're this, and on the one hand you're that, and their answer was, they're all evil. I think Google is more evil than Apple. Hence, I am not going to go the Google route. And whilst I think that's like the joke of saying, which venereal disease would you like, syphilis or HIV? And it's like, can I have neither? Do you know what I mean? I do kind of, it is a bit of a false equivocation and a false choice. But at the same time, I can't deny that there's a point there. It's like pick your poison almost.
Well, sure. And at the end of so many of my conversations, I want people to love the gadgets that they own. I want them to love them, not just, this is the thing I need to buy because it's the newest version of the thing that I bought before. I actually want them to find the novelty. I want them to discover something they couldn't do before. And that's why I've been so harsh and so critical on Samsung, Google, Sam Goople. I don't know. There's got to be an easy way to abbreviate those three company names into one. I feel like you get to a point where maybe even other social pressures become, I should just own an iPhone because all the people around me speak iPhone. Like here in the United States, it's tied up in text messaging.
Yeah, I know.
So stupid.
I know. It's like, have you guys not heard of WhatsApp? But then, hey, I made that joke once, and someone said, "Yeah, WhatsApp's owned by Meta," and And I'm kind of like, okay, shit. Okay, fair point.
Yeah. I mean, again, my wife and I are on Signal. I mean, there's another way around it. You can get around it.
To be fair, the WhatsApp encryption is the Signal protocol that they've taken the open source bit of it.
Sure.
But at the same time, no, I agree with you. I mean, I'm only using it because everybody else is using it, and so I'm assuming it's the same with iMessage in the States. So I'm not really got any ground to stand on, really.
But no, you seek the validation to justify the purchase you want to make. So sure, you can make any number of arguments on things like data trafficking policy. This is literally a conversation I just had in the comments on one of my recent videos. And this person espousing the same truthy, broad, generalized overview of the tech industry that I'm buying the device from Apple, so I'm not the product, right? Yeah. We all sort of caught into this idea. What is one of Apple's fastest and largest revenue growth sectors?
Cloud storage, services, that kind of thing, I would have thought.
Services. So lumped in with Apple Music and Apple TV Plus, Apple TV Plus is hemorrhaging money creating all that content. So if Apple TV Plus is hemorrhaging content, where is this revenue growth coming from? What is a part of the services category for Apple?
iCloud storage.
You think people are making up all of the expenses for creating content on Apple TV with 10 gigabyte cloud storage subscription plans?
As I often say, I am someone who hasn't used much Apple stuff, so I can't really comment. There's probably something that I've not thought about. Apple Care, maybe?
So a part of one of the major new additions to the services market when they discuss their quarterly financials is their consumer data marketing division, where they sell your consumer data internally in Apple to put ads in their apps and services. That sounds a lot like Google.
Yeah.
Like Google's business model is trafficking your user data and your user behavior to make more money off of your interactions with products and to sell ads in like the App Store. So even if we weren't like upset by that, how are you escaping Google by picking up an iPhone?
Good point.
For all these years, Google has been paying Apple well over $10 billion a year to be the default search in Safari and to be the default search on Siri. I don't even know, and someone will have to correct me in the comments here, I'm not sure you can switch search in Siri still. That the initial interaction with search through Siri is going to take place on Google. So sure,
probably
you can sit back confident that you're not the product, except that Apple is totally fine selling off all of your behavior to Google. So they're not selling your user data, except that they totally are.
Yeah.
So none of this holds true. When you come up with one of these simple, overarching statements of, well, it just works. That's Apple marketing. Privacy, it's the iPhone. Not true. Look at what you have to do to separate yourself from Google search on an iPhone. And then think, how many people are going into the settings in their web browser? And how many people are digging into Siri and really going through the process of, I'm going to use DuckDuckGo.
Yeah.
Right? That's not a thing. So the person who's sitting there and trying to make the argument, well, I went with the company that's better. Obviously, Google's worse about this stuff. Congratulations. You played yourself. You did. That's still all going to Google.
Yeah, very true. Very true. We're getting on a bit long. And I've taken a lot of
due to my podcast. We did.
Yeah, I've taken a lot of Juan's time. There were two things I was going to ask quickly, though. He says quickly. Okay. Just before
rapid fire.
Just before, almost like a rapid fire. Okay. So I suppose I do this podcast because I don't want to talk about the same things again and again, but I ended up talking about the same things again and again. Okay, so I'll just ask, just as a question, as someone who's a tech nerd, right? What would it take you to start using Linux on your devices?
I use a ton of Linux in Windows.
Okay.
WSL is mandatory on all of the systems that I'm running right now. I would say the box that I'm right now is like a project system. Is probably that little AMD machine that I was talking about. I'm just in love with SteamOS on these little like beefy AMD chipsets. But then outside of that, it's really been interesting. It's not necessarily Linux because you're playing with so many different flavors of, I don't know, kind of baked in operating systems. But really it's been Docker support. So like I've got another NAS over here on my desk.
I've been trying to get my head around Docker for the last like month.
It's not great. I've considered myself decently tech savvy, but finally digging through what that is afforded a wider range of capabilities on a number of systems. So I'm actually looking at, I've got a little media center PC that I use to run Plex, and I'm thinking I'm going to strip it all and turn that into, I don't know what distro I'm going to use yet, but I'm going to turn it into a Linux box and run Jellyfin instead.
Okay. So
to manage all of that.
So this has actually been a long-running, very boring, very newbie saga on some of the other episodes of Majid and his NAS. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of been like that. Yeah. So it started off with me buying a Synology because I was like,
as many of us do.
Yeah.
As many of us start with.
Yeah. And then buying some hard drives and then finding that it wasn't as intuitive as I thought. And it kept on failing. As in once the drives failed, to be fair, we had a power cut, but even then that corrupted everything and I had to kind of restart all over again. Put it this way, if I had done what I really wanted to do, which is turn it into a Nextcloud server, so I could divest myself of all cloud services.
Yep.
Yeah. If I had done that, I would have lost all my data at least twice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that I didn't, anyway, and then I think there may well have been a fault in the actual box that I had, but after about a year, I just got fed up. I tried doing I did Plex, Jellyfin. I tried to get into Docker. And my brain melted.
Yeah,
and all sorts of stuff. And then at the end of it, I thought to myself, you know what? Forget this, right? Forget this. And I was told by this little devil that sits just there. You can see him, right? Yeah. Anyway, why not just build a server? Just build a server. Because, why not? Right? But it'd be expensive. But actually, I managed to sell the Synology for a reasonable price. And you can get enough X Enterprise stuff on eBay. So I then bought a... it's down here somewhere. So it was an i3 6th gen 120 gig SSD with 8 gigs of DDR4 RAM and a DVD drive for £48, which I thought, yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's a good buy.
So then I thought, okay,
I would rock with that.
Okay, Ubuntu server. Let's go on. Go on then, Majid. Go on then. Let's do Ubuntu server. First time I'm dealing only on command line without a GUI. Did not end well. I messed things up. I installed things on the wrong drives. I got the wrong this done. And then I was introduced into I thought earbuds was a rabbit hole. Yeah? But file systems. Oh my God. ZFS, it's ZFS, by the way. BTRS, ext4, all of that, right? And there was some random bug, which actually wasn't a bug. It was that I had a dodgy keyboard, which I wasn't realizing was missing.
So that actually just happened to me on a laptop install.
Yeah.
It's just a weird keyboard that there is no driver for, so it won't work on any Linux distro.
So
so to kind of cut to the chase though, because this is our rapid fire.
Yeah.
I think the only way you could have started your journey off worse is if you did what I did and you went with a Western Digital enclosure. It's literally the worst box you can put hard drives in. Western Digital drives, awesome.
Okay.
Their enclosures
good because I've got one.
Hot, steaming poop. of devices. So I had one extra step before going to the Synology that you seemed to have avoided.
Okay. But so anyway, it gets worse. I'm only halfway through because after the Ubuntu server, I then thought to myself, I can't manage without a GUI. I need a GUI. So I then discovered Cockpit, which is this Red Hat thing which you can get Ubuntu for. It gives you like a graphical thing. And actually, if I'd persisted with it, I would have been all right. But then I then thought, wow, you know what? It's not, putting a lightweight desktop environment, it's not going to be too bad, is it? So I decided to put LXQT, which is one of the kind of lightweight desktop environments, it's the type that you'd put on a 32-bit system. It's that kind of, yeah. And I then still couldn't manage to get on with this. And then I thought, you know what? Why don't you go for one of these NAS-specific operating systems? So like TrueNAS. And I was a little bit scared because it's BSD, but actually it's not BSD anymore. It's Linux. It has but it has an interesting setup in that you need a boot drive, you have your data drive, and then you need an applications drive. Right?
Okay.
So you need to have, you'd have your SSD as your boot drive. You'd have your data on your Western Digitals or your Seagates, and other brands are available, BBC type equivocation and moderation there. And an NVMe or something, if you actually wanted to put apps like Docker this on, right? And then...
that doesn't sound... Sorry, I was just going to say that doesn't sound crazy, though, because one of the projects I'm thinking of doing is taking a mini PC and then treating one of my older NOS enclosures as direct attached storage.
Okay.
Because one of the things I'm running into a problem with Linux is I have these little ARM NOS boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Linux is not good at remembering and mounting network attached storage.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right? So you jump through a whole bunch of hoops, and then it still might be something I have to manually get the box to recognize just so I can run Plex.
Yeah, I find that it kind of depends on the distro when it comes to that. So
sure, yeah, and some are better than others, but across the board,
as a general rule,
Windows, I right click on a network drive and say assign a drive letter, and then Windows is kind of stupid enough to just let me treat that like a drive that was inside the box. That's maybe not the best in terms of security, but like for me to practically get to information on network storage and then tell another service like Jellyfin or Plex, look for the storage here, it's a drive letter. That's where you go to look for storage. So it kind of makes sense to me that TrueNAS would say, I need this, this, and this, so that you can keep Linux like organizing information in the way... I mean, you can keep the NAS operating system organizing information in the way that would kind of silo those three specific behaviors.
And then... yes, I then decided that I needed some more RAM.
Of course, we always need more RAM.
Yeah. And as per usual, I bought the wrong RAM for the wrong motherboard, because obviously that's something everybody seems to do. Apparently, I'm not the only one. And then I bought an NVMe, and then realized that the cheapest NVMe that I could get was £49. Remember how much this cost in the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay. So at which point I decided, and this is a very long-winded way of me telling you, try Open Media Vault. Open Media Vault has been by far the easy. It's basically just Debian. Debian headless.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's Debian headless, but with a web GUI, right? Perfect. And even though so you can, although ZFS isn't there out of the box, it's just one plugin away. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so now I have a ZFS pool. I now have all my media finally on it. Surprisingly, every Linux box can seem to find it, but my Windows box can't seem to find this. I don't know, which is a bit odd. I don't exactly understand what that is. And I've managed to get Docker onto it. So now it's Jellyfin time. So I'm going to leave Majid's things for that. And the last thing for the rapid fire is we were talking about confirmation biases, and we're talking about validation and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So I would like you to validate me. All right? So, phones that I have. I have a Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. Remember, I was actually trying to get the S24 Ultra, but found out it was actually cheaper to get the S25. Dex is still brilliant.
It's great.
Yeah. Tablet, I have a OnePlus Plaid 2.
Nice. That's a good tablet.
Yeah.
I have my OnePlus Pad 2. Gotta reach right here.
I mean, I still think that the screen on the Galaxy Tab S8 Plus I had was better, but it's not. Only if you had them literally side by side, looking at specific content, and then
you can miss me with any nerd who's like, "Oh, it's LCD." A good LCD is still a really good screen.
I'll tell you what ruins it. If anything does look bad on it, it's Netflix stuff, because they can't. OnePlus can't seem to sort out their certification stuff.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, I've had so many OnePlus phones that I've given up, and I don't buy OnePlus phones now.
So
since
all
the
the way
11
back to LG devices, now for me, it's become. I really feel it's become a Netflix issue, not a device manufacturer issue. And I think it's one of those things where you can now kind of, well, look, content looks better on a Galaxy or on an iPhone. Oh, you don't want to go with one of those OnePluses. So I actually don't have a subscription to Netflix anymore. I gave up on Netflix content.
The only reason I keep it is because it's got some good Indian dramas on it. That's the only reason I keep it. And Brooklyn Nine-Nine. If there's something that you want to watch without using your brain, that's one. Okay. My work phone,
Galaxy S25, OnePlus Pad.
Yeah, my work phone, so the NHS won't buy me a phone, which is fine, but they will give me £25 to buy a month to buy a contract.
Okay.
Poco X6 Pro 5G.
I don't remember the X6.
So it's the one with the MediaTek Dimensity, MediaTek Dimensity 8400.
Was that the one that had the kind of like laser glass reflective, like the diagonal like light?
No.
Reflections.
No. I think I think you have the F7. I think that's the F7. I think you're thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so that phone was basically free. That phone was basically free.
The only X I haven't liked was the very first year they switched over to 5G.
Okay.
The very first Poco X 5G was a noticeable step back in performance to balance the costs of going with that sort of stapled on 5G radio. But every other Poco X I've liked.
Yeah. And laptops wise, of the things that I actually use, because we've all got loads of crap in the house, do you know what I mean? But stuff that actually gets used is a Lenovo Yoga 6 with an AMD Ryzen, which is my Ubuntu box.
Nice.
However much I try and use something else, like another distro on it, all roads lead back to Ubuntu for me. If you just want it to just work, you know, I mean, Mint is probably slightly better actually at that, but anyway. And the other one you've already seen now is the Yoga Slim 7X. Oh, earbuds. Earbuds. All right, then.
Oh, God.
Nothing Ear A.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah. Sennheiser CX True Wireless.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sennies are always a pretty safe buy.
Yeah. I've actually got the original Nothing Ear as well. Galaxy Buds 3 Pro, which I only got.
I don't have his. Yeah.
I only got because I was getting it for half price, right?
Okay.
And for a man who was, laid up in bed for a while, they were the most comfortable for lying in bed and falling asleep to.
Okay.
I'll
allow it.
Yeah. I was gonna say, it does make me feel a bit kind of was I had, but I literally did get it half price. It's what they're £250 here when they came out, and I got it for 120. Right. So I was kind of like,
well, and also it is one of those things like Samsung's trying to squeeze their ecosystem, so you're getting at least the better Samsung audio codec support by going Galaxy Buds.
And the latest edition came yesterday. Earphone Air Pro 4.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've always had good experiences with the
earphone. I must say, I used to have the Earphone Pro 3, and unfortunately I lost them on trip to Morocco. And Gubbins here had forgotten to start the do the Find My Device thing on the app.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I've lost it. I know it's in this coach, but I can't find it anywhere. And so, yeah. Okay, so fine. So at least there's one other tech nerd on the planet that thinks I've got vaguely sensible choices. Okay, that makes me feel better.
I mean, so it's never.
I forgot.
I mean, again, I
forgot. Forgot. One last thing.
Yes.
The phone which I've bought now to replace the S25, because again I got it on a ridiculous deal, Honor Magic V3.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, so it's it's a V3, not the V5, right?
Sure.
£650 in the UK.
Not bad. That's a good boy.
Innit? I couldn't say no to it. I didn't need. Did I need it?
Yeah.
Of course I didn't. Of course I didn't.
No.
But
I do.
Cool. Excellent. As I said, I have taken far too much of your time. I'm very, very thankful for you have borne with me in my stupidity and my general lack.
This has been fun.
Yeah. As I said, I'm just so happy that you're on. For listeners, for the 3 people that were coming on the live stream, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it as well. My last thing to say would be to say thanks to Juan. And where can people find you? You know, as well as hitting your YouTube like and subscribe buttons. Where else can they find you?
I'm all over the place, and I'm a cranky, antagonistic contrarian. So across social media, you're going to find me as Some Gadget Guy. My personal site, somegadgetguy.com. And then I'm going to say the thing that seems to matter the most. If you go to my YouTube channel and like, share, subscribe, and smash the bell icon, they're still not going to tell you when I put out a new video. So if you really want to keep up with what's going on, you should hit my website, or you can also check out my Patreon, which is patreon.com/somegadgetguy. You can join as a free member, and that'll actually be notifications for when I publish new content, as opposed to all the people that keep coming back to my channel saying, hey, I didn't know you were still making videos, because YouTube is a raging dumpster fire right now. Google is, again, making every business decision they can to separate creators from their audiences, because all they want you doing is mindlessly scrolling through short snippet videos like TikTok.
I'm Indian, so I am notoriously tight, but this is one of the Patreons that I actually subscribe to. So there you go.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot for listening. If same with me, you can follow the Atypical Doctor podcast on YouTube. You've got my atypicaldoctor.com website, Atypical Doctor Discord server. That's where I generally kind of hang. And you can also catch me on my other podcast, Mintcast and Linux OTC. Thank you very much. Thank you, Juan. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Yes.
Bam.
That's my longest really episode so far. Yeah. So
I really have to get going. So yeah. I'm a bounce. Everything good? Like looks like audio. You got
I think
stuff?
so. I think everything's okay. I think everything's all right. What's this? Has Craig got it? Yes, it has. Oh, I recorded 6 out. Excellent. Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Juan. I appreciate you taking so much time out of your day for me.
Yep.
And
that was fun. That was really fun.
Yeah. And yeah.
So
see you later.
Let me know when like links and publishing and stuff, and I'll nudge it on my Blueskis and Mastodons and all that fun stuff.
Cool. Excellent. Thanks a lot, man. Much appreciated.
Take care.